given like 150, 175 sermons to this congregation. You've never clapped. And today I give a 2-minute temple talk. Did you clap once? Yes. So are you really trying to tell me that I need to be shorter? Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah, funny. Today we need to talk about bullying. It's been in the news a lot recently. I don't know if you've heard the news story of the 2 NFL players that play for the Miami Dolphins, and the one saying that he was bullied by one of his teammates. So they suspended the other player, and they're still waiting to see how it's all going to work out. But I think the text today talks about bullying, and I think we need to talk about it in church. I think it's a faithful thing that we need to talk about. First, before I begin, I want to give you a definition of bullying from Wikipedia. That's where we all get our information, right? Wikipedia. Bullying. The use of force, threat, or coercion to abuse, intimidate, or aggressively impose domination over others. The use of force, threat, or coercion to abuse, intimidate, or aggressively impose domination over others. I'm going to broaden it. I'm going to say that bullying is any time you try and make someone else feel less than you. Or anytime someone tries to do that to us. Anytime someone says, I am more important, I am worth more than you. And they may do it for a number of reasons. I think the 2 most important are, I'm going to try and get you to do something that I want you to do. Or I'm going to make you feel less about yourself so that I can feel more about me. So that I can feel good about myself. And if you look around at culture, bullying is all over the place. Bullying is part of our culture. I think about my life and how I was bullied. I was bullied when I was in elementary school. And the reason I was bullied was because I was so big. I was a 2nd grader, the same size as all the 5th graders. And all the 5th graders wanted to take a shot at me. They wanted to see how tough I was. And it got to the point where it got really old really fast. I was a 2nd, just because my body was big doesn't mean that I had all the same maturity of a 5th grader. And it got to the point where I didn't want to ride the bus. And it just wasn't any fun. But then I think about the times in my life when I was a boy. I remember being on varsity football. We would have our water breaks at the same time as the JV team. And we wouldn't let the freshmen drink water. Because they were freshmen. And it was during 2 days in August. And I know Michigan's not Texas, but it's really hot in Michigan in August. And I mean, that was dangerous not to let those kids drink water as they're playing football in the heat of the sun. It was mean. It was just plain mean not to let freshmen drink water. So I have been bullied. I know what it feels like to be bullied. And I have been a bully. And looking back, I'm sure I could think of 100 other ways. I think we can all think of ways in our lives that we've been bullied and that we have been a part of bullying someone. I think there's bullying in the church. I don't know, has anybody ever read the Athanasian Creed? It's Jonathan. Yep. It's 3 pages long. And the Athanasian Creed, what it is a bunch of people got together and said, there are other Christians who believe things that we don't like. And so we're going to come up with a creed that says that the church needs to believe everything we like, and then we're going to say that those people who don't believe those things aren't part of the church. And so part of the Athanasian Creed, I think, is a little bullying. Martin Luther, we celebrate Martin Luther's birthday because he's famous. He started the Reformation because he believed the church was bullying the people by making them feel guilty and causing them to do things they didn't want to do, like give everything that they had. They were peasants, but they still did that. There's bullying in the church today. When you're no longer welcome at your own church, that's bullying. There's bullying in our world today. We celebrate Veterans Day today, and the reason why there's so many veterans is because there's so many people in this world that want to bully other people. Right? Politics today is a lot of bullying. It's who's the loudest. But even the institutions of bullying, like racism and sexism. Somebody did I think a young lady, I think her name was Emma Brown maybe. She did a fascinating research on Google and auto-populating. Do you know what that means? You go to Google, you type in 2 words and it finishes the sentence for you. If you go to Google and put in the words women should, you know what comes up? The first thing, not vote. The second thing, not teach. Third thing, not speak in church. All you put in is woman should. That's bullying. There is an undertone of sexism that still goes on in this country. Bullying is a problem. It's a problem that starts in elementary school or even earlier and goes all the way up through the rest of our lives. And so today I want to look at what the Bible would say about bullying and how we react to bullying. The first thing is, I would say, Jesus would say, put distance between you and the bully. Get away. Jesus is talking, this is Luke's version of the Sermon on the Mount. You know why Jesus is talking on a mountain and not in a synagogue? Because the bullies were in town. The bullies were in the synagogue, and Jesus said, I'm not going to be by you. I'm going to go out on the mountain. And Jesus put distance between him and the religious leaders of the day who wanted to bully Jesus and tell him the things that he could say and the things he couldn't say. It's not until the very end of the Gospels that Jesus actually goes to Jerusalem and into the temple. He spends most of his time out walking in the villages. He used to say, get away from them. Well, you can't always get away. And so Matthew 18, Jesus said, if you have a problem with somebody, you know what you do? You go to them and say, I have a problem with you. And if they say, well, I'm not hearing what you're saying, then you take somebody or a couple people with you and say, I have a problem with you. We have a problem with you. You have to stop doing what you're doing. Which means if you can't solve it with your coworker or your classmate, you go to the teacher, you go to your boss, you go to somebody in authority and say, this is not right. And you go together and say, you have to stop. And then finally, if that doesn't work, you take a big group. Jesus says you take the whole church and say, you have to stop what you're doing or you're no longer welcome. And so if somebody is bullying you and you can't get them to stop, you tell a lot of people. That's what you do. You do that in the church and you do it everywhere. Do it at school, do it at work. That's what the Bible tells us. And in the church, we say we are a place where all are welcome, but not all behaviors are welcome. So we take that seriously, what Jesus says. If someone is bullying you, you do what you can to stop them. But then finally, we get to this text today where Jesus says, turn your other cheek and pray for those, your enemies. There are things that we wish Jesus didn't say, isn't there? Jason, you said a little bit. Why would you say that? Don't you know that your followers 2,000 years from now in Texas are going to read that and say, I don't want to hear that? But he said it. Turn your other cheek. But this is what I think he was saying. Jesus wasn't saying if someone comes up to you to slap you in public. People aren't slapping you in public to beat you up. They're slapping you in public to humiliate you. And so Jesus says, turn the other cheek, meaning let them hit you again. Let them try and humiliate you again. Because when you do that, you know what you say? You don't have any power over me. You can't make me feel bad about myself. There is nothing that you can say or do that's going to bother me. You're nobody to me. You're on my level. You see, the devil's all over bullying. The devil wants one of two things to happen. The devil wants you to believe that you're worthless. And when people bully you and you start to feel bad about yourself, the devil really wants you to go deep into that. The devil wants you to think that you are worthless. And on the other side, the devil wants you to think you're better than everyone else. And so that's what bullying is about. It's about putting distance between people. And if you let them hit your other cheek, you don't give them the satisfaction of letting it bother you. Jesus never let himself be bullied verbally. When he was in front of Pilate and Caiaphas at the end, they wanted him to take back things he was saying. They were threatening him with death. Take back what you said about being the Son of God. Take it back. Take back all your blasphemy. No, I'm not going to do that. And he went to the cross instead of being bullied. But in the cross, we have the ultimate sign of human bullying. Humanity looking at God and saying, you are worthy of death. And God taking it. Imagine that. God letting humanity bully him. When God is truly the one who could be the bully, if God wanted to be. If God wanted to create you in a way that you did and said everything that God wanted you to do and say, God could do that. But that's not how God works. God doesn't use intimidation to make us do things. God influences us with love. So by going to the cross, Jesus tells us about a kingdom which will come, which has come, where we are all equal. We will all find justice, where nobody is better than anybody else. A kingdom which has come, but will fully come someday in the future when, and I love when Job says this, because there's nobody in the Bible more bullied than Job, who says, someday, I know that my Redeemer lives, and someday he will stand on this earth. And we as people of faith nod our heads and say, yes, come, Lord Jesus.